Welcome back to another episode. I almost said issue. Another episode of the Dunwoody Dialogues. This show was produced by Discover Dunwoody, and I am your host, Mark Galvin. We have talked to so many folks, and you know this if you've seen this show. In fact, this little talk is the same at the front of all of our videos. We would love for you to go back and check out our library. We have talked to important people that run our city. We've talked to restaurateurs. We've talked to meeting professionals. We have talked to, we even talked to a guy who helps retirees be happier. So there's lots of great content. Go back and check. See if you have something there that you find interesting. Now, there's so many cool things going on in Dunwoody these days. We have so many brand new restaurants that are opening. We've got more entertainment that's coming in between High Street and Campus 244. We like to try to stay on top of all of that excitement so that you can be informed without having to spend any of your valuable time trying to track that down. Today, we are sitting with a special guest who's about to add a new chapter to Dunwoody's Village, the Dunwoody Village story. So we don't have a lot going on. We don't have a lot of new things necessarily happening up at the Village. We are excited to bring to you the owner of Steak and Grace. This is the highly anticipated restaurant that's set to redefine dining in our community. Meet Barry Mills. Barry, welcome.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you are here.
All right.
So Barry is, he's in the middle of opening a restaurant. So I know you're a little busy. So we'll try to move fast today.
Thanks.
He probably needs to get back and make sure that they're putting the doorways in or something. But you've got a lot of things that you've done in your past. First of all, you've spent 2 decades in the restaurant space in Atlanta. You've been a business owner, a restaurant owner for about 14 of them, give or take a year or two there.
Roughly, yes, sir.
And you also graduated from Georgia Tech with an engineering degree. How the heck does a guy that gets an engineering degree end up running restaurants?
It didn't happen overnight. First off, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. So my father he owned a bunch of car washes back in the 70s. And,
oh, wow.
And my mother's father was an entrepreneur as well. So I always knew that I was going to probably be an entrepreneur. It was just in my blood, and it was something that I just didn't know what it was going to be.
Right.
So I went to Georgia Tech and got a degree and got out, and I got a desk job, and it was not it. So
you did get a job in that engineering space?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And but I worked I'd been working in hospitality all through high school and all through college, and or in things of that nature. And those were the jobs that I was used to, and those were the jobs where I was. So anyway, I quit my job, and I was like, all right, I need some money. And I was thinking, well, maybe I'll go to graduate school or something. So I went and got a job at Buckhead Diner, working for general manager. There was Michael Arnett, who owns Haven and all those restaurants over in Brookhaven now.
Okay.
He was general manager at the time, and started waiting tables there. And I was just, a couple of months turned into, a little bit longer. And before I knew it, I was just sort of fully involved in the fine dining scene in Atlanta, and really just got I just had a lot of fulfillment in it. And I love hospitality, taking care of people, and I felt like it could be my calling. So after a number of years, it kind of came down to, all right. I remember my brother sat me down. He's like, "Look, you're either going to go and get an MBA, or you're going to open up a restaurant, or you're going to open up a business." And without even hesitation, I was like, "I want to open up a restaurant."
All right. Now, if you've got entrepreneurs in your family, it's in your DNA. It sounds like they probably said, "All right, great. You can start a business, but don't do a restaurant." Did you get that?
No, I really didn't.
Okay, good.
It was pretty much just like, we're just glad to see you. You're moving forwards and whatever. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, So the Buckhead Diner is one of the many great restaurants that you've worked in. You spent time in Rathman's. Boy, I tell you what, Kevin Rathman.
Awesome.
In fact, Kevin Rathman was in Dunwoody recently. The NFA Burger does the burger benefit.
Yeah.
And Kevin Rathman was up here flipping burgers for that. You also spent time at Hal's on Old Ivy.
Yeah.
Tell me about Howell's on Old Ivy.
It's definitely an old school kind of place.
Okay.
Very very neighborhood, all regulars.
All right.
You go in there and everybody's on a first name basis.
So, and I don't know enough about Howell's. I should.
But he's a great guy. He doesn't live in Atlanta anymore because he lives in Florida. He comes into my restaurant now over at the Big B's Fish Joint and comes in when he's in town. He's a really super guy.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So Howell's is a bit of with the locals and such.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're looking to create, isn't it?
Totally.
Now, I'm jumping ahead a bit, and so I do reserve the right to jump around on our script here. Steak and Grace, your mission here is to create something that has a local feel that attracts a lot of the community. Describe that.
First things first was I knew I wanted to go into a neighborhood restaurant, and I had a steakhouse sort of concept in my back pocket, and how it sort of all came together was all right. I wanted to go into Dunwoody, and you can't go in there with. I didn't feel like comfortable going in there with sort of a traditional steakhouse.
Okay.
First off, it's not in my DNA. I didn't think it was right. What I'm looking for are neighborhood restaurants. They have a concept around them. They're like seafood or steak or whatever. But a little bit of a broader menu, a little bit more approachable.
So this isn't going to be a fine dining kind of.
It has. I spend a lot of time in fine dining. I can't help it. A lot of that stuff sneaks in.
Okay.
So I like the design elements. I like the high level of service, and I like scratch kitchens with some culinary creativity and that kind of thing. But I like every restaurant I've ever done. It's going to be a little bit more casual, a little more approachable. I really learned. Bucket Diner was a game changer for me.
Really?
Because it was, Buckhead Life had all these really fancy restaurants and everything, and Buckhead Diner was just killing it.
Right.
And it taught me a lot. Was maybe take a step back, and you don't need to do the ultra high end kind of stuff.
So the Buckhead Diner, which I definitely ate at many times.
Yeah.
While it was a high end, you're right. It wasn't the same as. Gosh, what was some of the other Buckhead Diner
Vini Vidi Vici, Preachy,
yeah,
Chops,
those were those you did really feel like you had to sit straight in your seat.
Yeah,
Buckhead Diner was a little more casual.
Yeah, and it invited everybody.
So all right, that's the goal with Steak and Grace. And I have to ask you,
what's the goal with every restaurant I do?
Okay, is there anything with the name Steak and Grace? Is there?
Not really.
Okay,
all
right, I like it.
Steak names for me they're like my Achilles heel. I struggle all the way up to the very end with.
Okay.
I never am happy with it. I'm like Picasso, like the painting never ends.
Never finished.
I'm never happy with it.
Yes. So be happy. I think that I like the name. I think does anybody here? I'm looking back at the staff. Everybody likes it. We're getting nods. Yeah. So it's good.
A name by what I always tell myself, a name by a roast by another name still smells just as sweet. So at the end of the day, if you're walking, you're talking, you're doing what you're doing,
right?
You can call it anything. So
I think that
I try not to worry too much about it.
I think this is one of those things. Every once in a while, we'll see something as consumers. We'll see something or hear something like, "Oh, that is such a great one." That's that just doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah, I never nail that.
Right, that's right. It's one of those things. Well, you can define it, and I do love the idea of Steak and Grace because grace means grace. It could mean all right, sit down and say grace. Right. It could mean beauty. It could mean elegance. It has a lot of different meanings. I like it. I think that it works well.
And I tell you, one of the first things I knew going into this was I wanted to do a steakhouse, but I wanted to be a place that men and women could go into, and it was very, very balanced.
Grace is also a woman's name.
Yeah, and so I feel like it kind of that name is a little bit of a counterbalance. You know what I mean? So you got Steak and Grace. So
I like that.
That's kind of where I was going with it.
I think it's good.
It just added a little bit of softness to it, without taking it down, taking it either way too much. So
very good. When we were talking about the script before we recorded, I asked you about fine dining experience, and you said expressly that you don't want it to be a fine dining experience, but you're going to have fine dining elements. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
How does that play out? How do you offer, it sounds like elements of fine dining while still allowing people to be comfortable?
Yeah.
So that sounds like a bit of a challenge.
I'm always walking that razor's edge. I mean, my flip burger boutiques were the same way. I mean, I had back in 2008, having a chef, a celebrity chef doing hamburgers was very, very, unusual.
Sure.
And it was high design, everything. People were very confused about what we were doing. You know what I mean? And I think nowadays it's a little bit easier to walk that line, but it's always a challenge. But my guests also, the people coming in are gonna lead me one way or the other. I learned a long time ago. You open up the restaurant and then you pay really close attention to what your response is, and then you move based upon that.
Okay.
So
so that's fascinating. You're
Yeah.
walking into this. You have a concept. You have something you want to achieve, but you have to be malleable enough to say, okay, that doesn't work. We're going to try this.
You're creating a relationship with that community, and they're going to tell you, they're going to be giving you a lot of feedback, and you've got to listen to it, and you've got to respond to it.
Wow.
So
okay, that could be humbling.
Perfect example is my seafood restaurant in Sandy Springs is called Big B's Fish Joint. It was actually meant to be quite a bit more casual than it is. And my customer base was like, no, take it up.
Wow.
And I took it up to where it became what they were looking for.
Interesting.
So yeah, I actually opened that restaurant as fast casual, which means that you order at the counter,
Right.
and they were like, no way. And within a week, I had servers. So, but it's that's one aspect of being a restaurateur, is just really responding to that and being fast. And I've learned what I think my restaurant's going to be. It can often change based upon that. And I think that's just healthy.
Oh,
And
I think that's extremely
And I think
healthy.
that's just part of a restaurant.
Right.
Is you don't open up and say this is how it's going to be. You know what I mean? Take it or leave it. You're literally coming into a community, and you've
let them dictate what they're looking
exactly,
for, right? Because you may not have it right.
Exactly.
So interesting. All right. So I think we got a little bit into this, but what was the inspiration behind the concept of Steak and Grace, and when do you think it's going to open? What's your timeline? And is there an experience that people should, beyond the things we've talked about? It's really give us some of the fabric. What can we expect from Steak and Grace?
Well, I don't like to be overcomplicated with the concepts nowadays or anything like that. First off, let me just jump in there. We're working on it right now. We're probably about another month or two away.
Okay.
So it's under construction. And then what was the other question?
So what can people experience? What do you think they'll experience when they get in?
I think it'll be a lot like my other restaurant. Very. I'm hoping for people that want to come in there and eat there often. I don't really want it to be while it's I welcome special occasion. I don't want to be a special occasion place. I want to be a place where people feel like they feel comfortable going on a weekly basis, and that's what I'm trying to build there.
Good.
So a steakhouse with a little more approachable, a little more affordable, and something that the neighborhood can appreciate and go to with a higher frequency without feeling like, oh, I've got to get dressed up, or we've got to go and spend a bunch of money, or it's got to be a special occasion. So it's about really dialing it into that, and that's the experience I'm really going for. It's a place that's sort of a home away from home kind of thing. I'm not trying to wow anybody or be anything crazy. We talked about it before. Is I want restaurants that kind of become classics, or become an institution to the neighborhood, and there's no wow. There's nothing there other than just trying to do good, consistent food, good, consistent service, and they know you when you come in there.
I think it's so important.
And to me, that's the secret of my sauce, so to speak.
Yeah, and before you had told me that restaurants, the life cycle of a restaurant is around 10 years. Some of that's connected to the length of the lease.
That's my theory.
Yeah. So if you get connected to a community, you have a much better chance of surviving longer than that 10-year window.
Yeah, because they'll help you out in hard times, and that kind of thing. If you're that,
it happens in Dunwoody
in the economy and that kind of thing, obviously.
All that makes sense.
Yeah,
there are restaurants in the local Dunwoody community that have been around a while. And I've seen this on social media. It actually makes me laugh. Someone will go on social and say something bad about that restaurant. The entire community attacks that person. It's great. Like, you don't know what you're
doing a
talking
good
about.
job. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
That's
good
great.
stuff. So your chef is Conor O'Reilly.
Yeah.
So he brings a great background. Why did you select him? Was there anything about his background that really hit home?
Yeah, well, I wanted to. It's not really the background, so to speak. There's a, he's got a great background. So there's
Okay.
there's nothing that was a total requirement of where he came from, because he's got the creativity and he's got the background to do what we want to do at that level.
Yeah.
But I think it was more of the thing that gets me is anytime you're creating something and you're bringing in a partner to help create it and not just to operate it, you really want someone that kind of understands what you're trying to do. And
Got to be on the same page with you.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think he really kind of gets what I'm trying to do. So he's been over at my other restaurant for the past year, and we've been working on the menu over there. So it's
Okay,
giving me a
which
good
one?
chance. Big Beast Fish Joint.
Okay.
So it's giving me a chance to get to know him, and to get more comfortable with him. So yeah, I'm excited. I mean, he can definitely do it, and he also understands operationally. One of the things that when we're walking sort of that fine line between fine dining and casual, you really got to watch the cost, because I can't charge really exorbitant prices to sort of carry poor operations.
Right.
So I need guys that can really run a kitchen really tightly, because I like to provide value to my guests.
Sure.
And you can't do that if you're just spending just tons of money on labor and on stuff like that and not really watching it. So anyway, he's the type of guy that I feel like he can manage operations really well while also being creative.
I don't think there's a successful restaurant out there that doesn't have somebody who gets business.
Yeah.
The margins in your space are tight, and if you
sure
can't pay attention to them, you can end up getting sunk.
Yeah.
That's got to be I think that's a skill that, find somebody who understands how to make great food and can balance
Yeah.
it with the right understanding. Okay, that's a good place to put money. That's a good dish to serve. It's going to be high quality,
Yeah.
but it's not going to break the bank.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's something. I'm going to use an example. I think Chilean sea bass, when I see it on a menu, like, why? Because it's such an expensive fish.
Oh yeah.
And there's so many other options you can offer that are fantastic. Now, Chilean sea bass is great, right? But is it worth what you pay for it? I think that's an example of one of those decisions.
That's
you
a
have to
perfect
make.
example. We talk about it all the time.
Do you really? Chilean sea
yeah.
bass.
Oh yeah.
Why? Describe that. I think that's interesting.
I mean, it's very popular. It's very expensive. And anybody that's putting it on their menu is you're usually taking a big hit on it.
You're going to lose.
You're not going to lose, but you're not going to make as much money on it.
Wow.
I mean, so typically on a normal piece of fish, you might do a 30% food cost on that.
Mm-hmm.
With Chilean sea bass, if you don't want, unless you want it to be just exorbitant, I mean, you might do it at 45 or 50% or something.
Wow, really?
So yeah, just to keep it in line, just so it's within your sort of the parameters of your menu. So
every Sunday, this is we'll cut this. You guys don't have to hear this. Every Sunday, my wife and I go to the DeKalb Farmers Market, and we buy a piece of fish and a steak, cut as a steak.
Okay.
And we've gone all the expensive fish route, and we've ended up with finding swordfish, fantastic on a grill, the cheapest one they have there, by the way, and amberjack.
Yeah.
And they're so good on a grill, but they're two of the cheapest fish. And it has taught me, okay, just because a fish is expensive doesn't mean it's going to be great. And that's part of that food cost thing. That's where you need a chef that says this fish is going to be good for this presentation. Yeah. So evidently I've learned this after the fact that swordfish is a fatty fish that does really well on the grill. That's why I like it so much. And you just have to know that.
Grills really well. Yeah.
And it's amazing. All right. So many interesting things. And I do want to, and I skipped over this. I should tell everybody that you co-founded Flip Burger Boutique with celebrity chef Richard Blaze. And then you also created Sandy Springs Big B's Fish Joint, which I'm going to have to come check out because I've already admitted I like fish. All right. So why Dunwoody is the next question, right? There are so many other places in the city, right? So many other neighborhoods you could have gone into. Why did you pick our neighborhood, which we're glad, but what was it about Dunwoody that drew you here?
As I've gotten older and I'm doing restaurants, I like going to more. I'm really more interested in doing the neighborhoods now.
Okay, but why?
And
Why is that?
relationships,
Okay,
and also just the longevity. I think going into a community or into a neighborhood and opening a restaurant and building a customer base of regulars. They're going to be much more loyal and stick with you, and you can have much better word of mouth than being I just think off the cuff, somewhere down in Buckhead on a main road and it's you
Right.
drive by and getting people and that kind of thing. So and then why Dunwoody? Because I like areas that I know, and I spent it's like 7 years in my high school years, well, high school and college, over in this area, living over here. So I lived over off Abernathy. So
Wow.
Sandy Springs and Dunwoody are sort of my old stomping grounds, and there's a comfort level there. I know a lot of people, and so it's so yeah, that's why.
I think that's cool.
And I know it's a good crowd. So
It absolutely is. I love to say about Dunwoody, we are the smallest big city
yeah.
that you could ever know. You'll know our mayor. You'll know the city council members. They'll be in and out.
I love it.
You'll get to know the folks. We've already talked about David Abus right around the corner. You'll get to know David really well. I'm sure you may know him already, because we all get connected. This is a really tight-knit community. I think that's a great strategy, tactic. In this case, picking a neighborhood that you're really going to be able to get connected to people. And I think of a restaurant right around the corner from you as an example. Carbonara's is an example. Everybody that's in Dunwoody talks about knowing the owner of that restaurant, and they love that restaurant because they know him.
Yeah.
And so I do think that there's some there.
Yeah.
Well done.
Awesome.
So, what's next? And this is probably not the time to ask him this, for the record, but you'll open Steak and Grace. Do you have other big projects that's coming up after that? I
I really do just kind of one thing at a time. So I
Okay.
think, opening a restaurant, just getting the doors open is just half the battle. Then it's really kind of getting in there and dialing it in and making sure that it's a successful restaurant and we're doing a good job. And so, so I'm fully focused on that right now. I really am.
That's really cool.
I probably will go and get something off later on, but for right now, it's all eyes on that.
Well, good.
So yeah.
And so opening up in a month or so,
Yeah.
you're right. I'm guessing you'd be hiring right about now.
We'll start. We end up hiring right at the very end.
Really?
Yeah, because if you don't, you'll lose them all. So
Oh, that makes good sense.
yeah, I've made that mistake before.
Okay,
I
yeah.
hired my whole staff.
Don't
and
hire
then
too
we got
early.
a delay for a couple of weeks, and then I just had to do it all over again.
Oh, wow.
So
All right. Well, good.
Yeah.
So, people can keep an eye
Yeah.
on this. Where can people find out more about the restaurant?
we do have an Instagram link, and then we have Facebook, and then our website's steakandgrace.com.
Okay, great.
So yeah.
So we'll put all those links
Awesome.
down here in the show notes. So you folks go down and check that out. At the time of taping, Barry's still working on some of those things because, this is another good thing. You have a timeline to put all this stuff together, and that's going to happen. We love that you're coming to Dunwoody. We love our city. We think that what you're offering in the village is a great thing, and you're going to see some great success. So
Super
we're
excited
glad
to be
you're
here. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, man,
awesome.
I love it. Well, folks, we love that you're here watching another episode of the Dunwoody Dialogues. This show is produced by Discover Dunwoody. Our producer is Madison Holtz. Our sound technician is Emily Inser Allen. We always want you to remember that you can get your Dunwoody stickers. So if you don't know where to get a Dunwoody sticker by now, just come to our office. Now, I'm going to see if I can get Barry. Hey, do you think we can have a couple of these
Absolutely.
sitting at the... you'll be able to go Steak and Grace and get your free version. By the way, you can't charge for these.
Yeah,
So-
I'll give them out for free. Yeah.
All right, good. We've had a couple, NFA Burger was trying to charge for it. No, I'm
Okay.
kidding. He wasn't
my
doing that over there.
goodness.
I'm just joking. I love to give him a hard time. So back to you folks. We love that you're watching. Please go check out our website, discoverdunwoody.com, or our social media. Also, our handle is Discover Dunwoody. Barry, thanks again for being here. It's great
Wonderful.
talking with
Thanks
you.
so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right.
And to all of you, thanks for watching. Now go out and discover Dunwoody.